The Big 12 preseason poll is out, and the Utah Utes are on top. Does Utah deserve to be number one? And do they deserve to be ranked inside the top 10 of EA Sports college football game? All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcast. If this is your first time listening to our show, make sure you like and subscribe. Love interacting with all of you in the YouTube comments as well as on social media, where you can follow our show today on X at Locked On Utes. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by Gametime. You can download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On College. That's all caps, no spaces, Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. My name is JT Wistricll, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to be joined on today's show by AllUtes writer Elijah Grayson Murray. And Elijah, we got to talk about the news that Utah is on top of the Big 12 preseason rankings. And this shouldn't be too much of a surprise, right? Most people in the media have pegged Utah as the top team. You've seen some Kansas State selections in there too, and which makes sense because it was close between Utah and Kansas State. Utah narrowly had the most votes. They had 21st most first place votes. They had 20 first place votes to Kansas State's 19 first place votes. In third is Oklahoma State at 14. But look, with the amount of talent that Utah returns, with the success they've had under Cam Rising and of course under Kyle Whittingham as well recently, all of that talent factored in, I believe Utah deserves to be on top of this conference.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. You know, the entire offseason, the media has pretty much been having Utah right there at the top with K-State. And I think odds are Utah and K-State are tied at plus 300 to win the conference. And so it's kind of that trajectory has been kind of consistent throughout the entire offseason. It's really good to see Utah get the most votes, especially as a new conference member. And it's 100% valid with how many players they've retained, plus, you know, the transfer portal gets that they've been able to, you know, accomplish. It's all around the roster seems like it's pretty solid and ready to contend right away.
Yeah, they're definitely ready to contend right away. And let's talk about that roster, right? Yeah. Cam Rising is a big name, but there's a reason for that. He's built himself into a big name. He is on the Big 12, and they released the graphic of this ranking. It has Cam Rising's face on it. Why is that? Well, he's led this team to back-to-back conference championships when he was last healthy and played. I know they didn't win in 2023, but the offense fell off a cliff without Cam Rising. That's how good he is. 38 points per game when he was healthy in 22. Without him in 23, that cratered all the way to 23 points per game. I expect that number to be up high. Cam is a guy who gets it done with his arm and his legs occasionally. If you want to say he's going to run a little less with his legs because of the injury, I can get behind that. But he is a clutch quarterback who's gone against some of the best in college football in recent memory and more than held his own against those guys. He's a guy who can make the right throws. He's got accuracy. He's got great pocket presence. And his experience, you just can't teach that. So that's why I think you look right away and you're like, boom, you have the leader at quarterback. How about pass catchers? Dorian Singer is a 1,000-yard receiver. I know it didn't go great at USC, but they had a lot of mouths to feed. Also, you got other guys like Money Parks, Damian Alford now coming over, Manir McClain, Micah Pittman. Two of those three guys, I think, and I think all of them, honestly, will have a chance to make big plays at different points in the fall. But I still haven't even mentioned Utah's best pass catcher yet, and that's Brant Kuithe, the dynamic tight end for Utah, who's always, I think he grew a lot as a blocker over the course of his career. And now it'll be interesting to see because we haven't seen him in a long time, but everything in practice and what we've heard is that he had been healthy during spring ball. We saw him in the spring game, and he's an absolute mismatch nightmare. He's a first team all Big 12 preseason conference selection because of how just successful he was back when he played in 21 and 22 and even 23. He was on that Florida game. He had over 100 yards. Like he was on pace to set the country on fire, it felt like, and he just didn't get a chance to finish it out. And that's without even mentioning Landon King and Carson Ryan too. And to cap it off, just for the offense, the offensive line returned three guys that have started a lot of games for them. If you look at Johnny Maya back in at center, I know it was Coley last year, but Maya was probably going to be the guy if he didn't deal with injuries. You get Spencer Fano, who started as a freshman, gained valuable experience. He slides back over to the right side. Michael Mokofisi's a 3-year starter. I think of the offense, the offensive line is the one I have some questions about, but you got a 4-star left tackle and Caleb Lomu over there as well, and a fun battle for the guard spot that could go to Tongai. But the Utah offensive lines are always more than capable under Jim Harding. I just feel like this offense has more than enough of the makings to be one of the best, to be the best team in the Big 12.
Oh, 100%. And, in spring camp, Dorian Singer and Rising had that connection right away.
Yep.
And that's always a good sign when your top pass catch or top receiver and arguably best, pass catcher on the team, if Keithy does not return to his prior form, that's always a good sign to have that immediate connection. Like you said, we have Parks, we have Alford, Pittman looked incredible in camp. Also have Tayshawn Lyons, who can impact. So we have a lot of guys out wide, and also if Keithy does return to his form, he was always the one that we thought was the better of the two between him and Kincaid. So if he gets back to that, it's going to be almost impossible to stop the pass game. Like you said, the offensive line is a bit of a concern, just as we don't know how they would work as a unit. And also the running back room, we still don't know how that dynamic is going to play out. But if we're just going off the pass game alone, I don't see how anyone will have success stopping it.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to stop. And I'll say this about the Utah offensive line, because I brought up the concerns too. Like under Jim Harding, they've always been really good. It's just a matter of, okay, can they get back to 21, 22 form? Yeah. And I do expect them to be better than they were in 23. I'm curious if they'll get back to that level. But with the way the offense will work through the air, and also Mekhi Bernard has had some great moments as a pass catching back out of the backfield, as a pass protector. I'll add for him as well too. And, so many backs that I trust, whether it is a Jalen Glover, also an Anthony Woods coming over, rush for 1,000 yards at Idaho. We know what he can do behind a strong offensive line. Yes, FCS to FBS, but if you can run the ball, you can run the ball. And that's without even mentioning Dejon Stanley, John Randall, as well as Mikey Matthews as well. Yes. Or the back they got there too. Like these are 4-star, 3-star high-level recruits that are going to tear it up when given the opportunity. And just to rope in the defense too. And I know I'm talking a lot about the positions, but that's why Utah is ranked this high, is because of the totality of the team and how strong they are. They return everyone except for one guy of their main front 7 players. Yes, Levi Demooney also got hurt, but Jonah Ellis is the only guy not in there. But Jonah Ellis, while he was a good run defender, he was drafted that high more than anything for his pass rushing prowess. I expect this run defense to be really good. Also, Connor O'Toole was supposed to be this team's best pass rusher last year, and they will get him back, and I think he's going to have a monster year coming into the season healthy. And that's secondary. It's the same thing with the offensive line. And Morgan Scalley and Sharif Shaw, they do a fantastic job with those guys. Zamaya Vaughn and several other capable bodies back there. You factor all of that talent in with great coaching, because Kyle Whittingham is a great coach. And this is the best roster in the Big 12 top to bottom with the best coaching in the Big 12. And therefore, they're going to land in the top spot. Yeah,
I agree. And, on defense, I actually wrote an article about it a few weeks ago about the top concerns for the Utah roster. I'd say the only concern for me is the linebacker spot, just because losing Demooney, you still have Kareem Reed and Barton, which is, better than a lot of teams would not complain by having that. But in regards to the depth, if one does not play up to how they're supposed to play, that could leave some issues in the middle of the field. But, the defensive line should continue to, clog up the run spaces and collapse the pocket, and the cornerbacks and just the defensive backs in general have improved massively. And so I think while the linebacker spot isn't necessarily the biggest, the most talented depth wise, I think just as a whole unit, there's going to be a lot to like there.
Yeah, there are some questions about who if Corene or Lander go down, but
Yeah.
Lander and Corene are going to be on the field most of the time. And like you
Yeah.
said, we feel good about those guys. Lander in particular, we'll talk
Right.
all conference teams tomorrow. I believe he should have been on the first. I believe he should have been on the all defense team. And Corene Reed is just so steady and consistent, makes so many great plays. Never forget the interception last year. He can just in coverage and a surefire tackling machine. He's fantastic. And also, I will say this one scheduling note that helps why you think Utah would be number one for the media members that are voting on this list. If you look at the Big 12 preseason vote where Utah had, as we said, the most number one votes, Utah plays 6 of the bottom 7 ranked teams, and they miss 4 of the top 9 teams. So not only do I feel like they have the best roster, but they do have some really good breaks in the schedule too. All of that factored in to make them, in my opinion, the clear favorite, and in the majority of the Big 12 media's opinion, to be the top team in the conference and to more than likely win the conference. Now, can they do it? That's what we'll have to wait and see to find out. But we know that the Big 12 media members aren't the only one who are high on Utah. You know who else is high on Utah? EA Sports' college football, which is coming back this year, and we can't wait to play it. But Utah, because they released their rankings, and Utah is in the top 10 of that. Do they deserve to be there? That's what we'll be diving into in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you all about our fantastic friends at Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app, they actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. They have great last-minute deals, all-in-price views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime truly takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And there are so many features that I absolutely love, whether it's all-in pricing, where this feature allows you to see the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. How about a seat view? You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Or that low price guarantee. Well, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. And that's without mentioning all the deals like flash deals and zone deals, where you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals. So make sure you guys head over and download Gametime today. You can take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollegeCapital, LO, and all of college capitalized for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Elijah, looking at the EA Sports college football game, college football 25, I'll say it exactly correct. Everyone's fired up. We're about 2 weeks away from the release. We all can't wait to play it, of course, play as our favorite this Utah team, and then dynasty mode, all the great things that come with EA Sports college football. But what's also fun is they released a rankings of the top 10 teams, and they have Utah inside their top 10, like we've seen Joe Klatt do and a couple other media members do. But it always is exciting when you're ranked inside the top 10. The full rankings go as follow. You have Georgia, the clear number 1, Ohio State number 2, Oregon is 3rd, Alabama is 4, Texas is 5, Clemson is 6, Notre Dame is 7, LSU is 8, with Penn State at 9 and Utah at 10. It is actually very interesting with Utah too, because they are ranked in 88 overall, which ties them with Penn State, who's above them. Then Michigan's in 88, Florida State's in 88, Miami's in 88, A&M's in 88, and Ole Miss is also an 88. Now, I will say you can look at these rankings in some ways with a grain of salt, because they do have Colorado all the way up there at 16, but I do believe they got Utah right, being one of the 10 best teams in college football.
Yeah, 100%. You know, the last time this game came out, I was 10 years old. So if that puts into perspective, I'm 21 now. So if that puts into perspective how long we've been waiting, this is shaping up to be like the sports game of the year with how detailed and everything it is. But that aside, I think Utah, I remember when the rankings first came out and everyone was like, why in the world is Clemson so high? And Utah is not, or Utah and Ole Miss are not anywhere on the, on the list. And so I think while Utah definitely deserves to be in the top 10, I would almost think they deserve to be like 9 or 8 if you switch around some of the rankings. But nonetheless, everyone will take a top 10 rating. It gives you bragging rights, and also, it makes it a bit easier to play with your team against your buddies and whatnot. But no, I am very excited for the game, and I think it's going to be amazing. I can't wait.
I can't wait either. And as for this list, I agree. There are teams that I feel like got really slighted in this. Like there are teams behind Utah you can make a case of being over. But for me, I would take Clemson and Notre Dame out of 6 and 7. Clemson to me, I just want to see it from Cade Klubnik. He had the 80th best QBR last year. I know he had good moments and numbers, but he also had some really bad moments and has let them down a lot. I know that defense is great, but talking about the totality again. Also, Riley Leonard, right? Riley Leonard had some really good moments, but new team, new offense he's got to adjust to and everything there. So I still want to wait and see if he can put everything together in Notre Dame and just see in South Bend. They haven't achieved the heights they were hoping to achieve under Marcus Freeman yet. So to me, you have to do it before you land there. That's what's nice about Utah is they have done it. Is it a change in conference? Sure. But when you look on paper, you're just like, no, Utah is better than these teams. You factor in the home field advantage. Like we said with the schedule, also breaking in Utah's favor. There's one game on Utah's schedule, in my opinion, they shouldn't be favored in, is the Oklahoma State game. And I think there's reasons to believe they actually match up well with Oklahoma State when you look at the rush defense the Utes have versus Ollie Gordon and going against that group that they have with that offensive line. So I think Utah will have a chance to win that game and make a Big 12 statement in their very first real Big 12 game. I know they're playing Baylor, but that's like technically a non-conference game.
Right.
So it's weird. But once again, we factor it in. The schedule, the coaching, the roster. You can see why people are high on this Utah football team. It's a very complete group. And the positions where we have some question marks about are led by very good coaches. I would say Morgan Scalley and Sharif Shah are two of the 5 to top 3 best at what they do in the country. Right. And then as for Jim Harding, I think he's a top 10 to 5 offensive line coach. I believe he always gets the best out of his guys. I'll lean back. I'll go top 10 for him a little bit there. But that's if that's what I have to question. And also I'm relying on some 4-star guys who showed a lot of promise. And every time Utah's put guys out there, it's never like, oh my gosh, this is a disaster with him in there. It's just some guys perform better than others. I just feel really good about the position this Utah team is in. And I love that EA Sports is recognizing it and that we're going to be able to beat up on these other teams with the higher rankings that Utah has.
Yeah. And, the ratings are dynamic. So I think as the year goes on, Utah can move up or down based on, the performance. I think one area which I have to pick a bone with is that Utah's home field advantage is ranked 18th.
Agreed.
25. And so when I saw that, I was a bit like, what's going on here? But other than that, roster wise, if we're just going off the roster, it's hard to complain.
Yeah, you're right with the home field. I talked about that on a show in the past. I don't understand that. I know some people, I don't know, maybe it's the amount of people in some of those crowds or whatever it is, but just talk to anyone when you're talking about the altitude, how loud it gets in Rice-Eccles Stadium, the way the sound is trapped. It's just, there's a reason that only an Oregon team with Bo Nix in a game that Cam Rising didn't play. That's the only team that's won in Rice-Eccles Stadium since 2018, since the conclusion of the 2018 season. Like that has to matter for something. That's just how good Utah's been at home. So I expect them to continue to crush it. And like you said, Elijah, it's going to be so much fun to play this game, but also just say, I just love seeing Utah among the best brands in the country. You look at these, like even the ones as Clemson, Notre Dame, we feel they should be ranked above them, but to be in the conversation with Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Alabama, Texas, LSU, Penn State, Utah, like these are some of the best programs in the country that are perennially top 10 programs. Utah's been a top 10 to 15 program in college football the last few years. And I love that Utah's given the Utes some shine because they easily could have looked at more flashy brands and elevated them over a team like Utah, but it feels like Utah is right where they belong.
Right. And even when they released that pyramid of payments a while back, Utah
tier
were
one
in tier
teams.
one. That's that says a lot about how far the program has come and how well it's been built out by Whittingham and the entire coaching staff. Rising has had such an impact on just the brand of Utah football. And I think that'll continue with Wilson being such a high profile prospect. The future is looking bright, and right now you can't complain with the trajectory of the program for the season.
Can't complain at all. We're fired up for it to get underway. Love seeing Utah at number 1. They belong at number 1 in the Big 12, in my opinion, for going into the season with all the factors we talked about. And they do belong as a top 10 team. I'm glad EA Sports sees it that way too. But unfortunately, Utah will not be a top 10 team when it comes to men's basketball this season. We're going to talk about the state of the men's basketball team is because the Big 12 officially released their pairings for Utah men's and women's basketball. Start with the men's team first. They will do home and away games with Baylor, BYU, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, and West Virginia. Home only games against Arizona State, Colorado, Kansas, Kansas State, Texas Tech. And the away only games will be Arizona, UCF, Houston, Iowa State, and TCU. There are some tough games in there because it's the Big 12 basketball. But there's also some games in here I look at and I'm like, okay, I kind of like how this broke for Utah. Going to Baylor, home and away with Baylor, is going to be tough for Utah. But BYU, we always wanted to play BYU, even though right now they'll be ranked higher than us. We beat them, we upset them last year, but that we always need to play BYU. Even though I think BYU will be favored in both games against Utah next year, you got to play them. But the rest of these, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, extremely winnable games, all of them, the home ones and the away ones. If we're looking at the home only ones with Arizona State, Colorado, Kansas, Kansas State, Texas Tech, getting Kansas at home only and not having to go out there, that's massive. Yeah. And yes, like going to Arizona, going to like an Iowa State, obviously a Houston, going to Arizona and Houston, that sucks.
Right.
But especially with the home and away series, I feel like that's where this Big 12 schedule broke really well for Utah.
No, 100%. And, I remember, when the season concluded, everyone was kind of like, what is going to be the future for the team, with all the, losing Smith, losing Carlson to the draft, losing Kevin Kaisa. And you're just like, what's going on? Especially since we're entering a harder conference. How are we even going to be anywhere near a competitive place? And then you bring in Ezra Asor, who broke a backboard. That was awesome. And then you have Myro Little, you have Mongolian Mike. You have a bunch of these guys coming in, and they're not as impact names like Davon Smith, but overall as a roster, I think it's a more complete roster. The field that we're bringing on the court this year, and like you said, the home and away pairings broke really well for us in most cases. Obviously, Arizona away is not fun, and
Arizona and Houston are rough.
Yeah, Arizona and Houston are rough, but for the most part, especially the Kansas at home, that is a mass. And if you can win that game, that's insane. And so I think Craig Smith has done a really good job at building up the roster in such a crucial year for the program, and I'm excited to see what they can do against tougher, opponents.
I'm excited as well. I'm fascinated to see it play out. Real quick for the women's basketball team as well. Their home and away games are with Arizona State, and BYU. Home only is UCF, Colorado, Houston, Kansas, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State. And away only is Baylor, Cincinnati, Iowa State, TCU, Texas Tech, and West Virginia. Gianna Neepkins and Jenna Johnson ready to lead the charge with the women's basketball team. Obviously, Utah will miss Alyssa Peely, but still feels like Lynn Roberts and her squad are set to have a massive year, and feel like the home and aways for them broke very well too. Yeah. So basically, overall, Elijah, it's a great day to be a Ute. Every day is a great day to be a Ute, but especially when we get to talk about Utah being the best in the Big 12. And hey, the men's basketball would be interesting to see how the season goes, but overall, liking the way the schedule played out, just like I'm loving the fact that we're closing in on the release of EA Sports. It is a great time to be a Utah fan right now, and just can't wait to continue to monitor everything going on in the world. And as everyone tries to keep it straight in the world of Utah athletics, Elijah, where should they head over to?
So I write for FanNation AllUtes. I repost my articles on my Twitter or X account, which is underneath here. You can also visit the FanNation AllUtes Twitter account for all the articles that we write, and so that we keep up on the latest Utah news from basketball, football, recruiting, everything. You can go there and we'll have it.
Awesome. Well, Elijah, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be on anytime.
That'll do it for our show today. Hope you all have a fantastic 4th of July, and we'll be back with you soon talking more things Utah athletics.